Columbia lost. I'm Camille Bohannon. We're awaiting a news conference from NASA as to what it knows about the apparent explosion of the shuttle Columbia today over Texas, killing all 7 astronauts aboard. We've also been told at some point that President Bush will speak to the nation. Residents of Texas and some other states are saying they are finding debris. Correspondent Sagar Magani reports about 15 minutes before the scheduled landing of the shuttle Columbia in Florida, it became clear something was wrong.
Columbia was scheduled for a 9:16 a.m. Eastern landing at Kennedy Space Center, but at 9 o'clock, Mission Control in Houston reported losing all data and contact with the crew. No voice response from the astronauts, no telemetry from the shuttle itself. It was at about that same time people in eastern Texas reported hearing what sounded like a big bang.
6 Americans and the first Israeli astronaut were on board. At Kennedy Space Center, the U.S. flag next to the countdown clock was lowered to half-staff. TV footage showed a bright light over Texas, followed by smoke plumes streaking diagonally across the sky. A contingency for the space shuttle was declared by Mission Control. That was very early on. That meant that all records having to do with the approach to landing and all such technical matters were to be preserved. On January 16th, shortly after Columbia lifted off, a piece of insulation foam on its external fuel tank came off. It was believed to have hit the left wing of the shuttle. The lead flight director in Mission Control, Leroy Kane, assured reporters that engineers had concluded that any danger to the wing was considered minor and posed no safety hazard. When the shuttle apparently blew up, it was an altitude of over 203,000 feet over north central Texas and traveling at over 12,000 miles an hour. That is when Mission Control lost all contact and tracking.
And now we are live, and we're going to the NASA news conference.
About 3 o'clock Eastern time, there'll be a full technical briefing conducted from the Johnson Space Center. So at this point, we're just going to give you the circumstances as we understand them leading up to this particular tragedy today. This is indeed a tragic day for the NASA family, for the families of the astronauts who flew on STS-107, and likewise tragic for the nation. Immediately upon indication of a loss of communications on STS-107, at a little after 9 a.m. this morning, we began our contingency plan to preserve all the information relative to the flight activities. I immediately advised the President and the Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Tom Ridge, at the point after landing was due to have occurred at 9:16. Spoke to them very briefly thereafter to advise that we had lost contact with the shuttle orbiter Columbia and STS-107 crew. The President specifically offered full and immediate support to determine what the appropriate steps were thereafter to be taken. We then spent the next hour and a half working through the detail and information of what we have received, and Bill Reedy will walk you through the specifics of those operational and technical issues here in just a moment. Thereafter, we have met with the family members of the astronauts who were here at Kennedy Space Center and are soon to be departing back to Johnston, to Houston. The President has called and spoken to them to express our deepest national regrets. We have assured them that we will begin the process immediately to recover their loved ones and understand the cause of this tragedy.
You're listening to the voice of Sean O'Keefe at NASA on Island Talk 540 WLIE.
We've assembled a mishap investigation team that immediately was assembled upon the point of past the stage in which the orbiter was to have landed here at Kennedy Space Center a little after 9:30, and that team in turn is coordinating on a regular basis on all the facts that are pertaining to this from the Johnson Space Center, and a rapid response team from here at the Kennedy Space Center, as well as participants from the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. In addition to these internal efforts, we have also appointed a mishap investigation board, an external group of people who are independent from NASA, who will immediately be charged with the opportunity to look at all the information that was immediately locked down right after our absence of communications. Each of these individuals are safety and mission assurance related officials in other federal departments of the federal government, from the Air Force, from the Navy, from the Department of Transportation, and across the federal expanse. The investigation team will also be chaired by an individual contacted to serve who is external to the federal agencies, and will have the opportunity to coordinate all the information again from an external view. So we'll be conducting both the internal activity as well as an external review immediately to ascertain the causes and circumstances under which this tragedy occurred. We pulled together all the federal agencies and local governments as well. In discussion several times this morning with Secretary Tom Ridge, the effort is heavily underway to coordinate an understanding of exactly where the orbiter path had taken it from West Texas towards the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida, and to make sure that the material on the ground is secured so that the investigation can begin promptly. We would urge anyone who believes they have discovered or found any material to stay away from it and to please contact local officials. The local first responder groups for emergency services and so forth have been authorized and directed by Secretary Tom Ridge to assist in all manner. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is coordinating that effort on the part of the Department of Homeland Security. So here this morning with the families of the astronauts and their friends. Started out as a pretty happy morning, awaiting the landing of STS-107. And we had highly anticipated their return because we couldn't wait to congratulate them for their extraordinary performance and their excellent efforts on the science mission on this very important flight. They dedicated their lives to pushing the scientific challenges for all of us here on Earth. And they dedicated themselves to that objective and did it with a happy heart, willingly, and with great enthusiasm. The loss of this valiant crew is something we will never be able to get over, and certainly the families of all of them, we have assured we will do everything we can possibly do to guarantee that they work their way through this horrific tragedy. We ask the members of the media to honor that too. To please respect their privacy and please understand the tragedy that they are going through at this time. We will help the media assure that be the case as well. We trust that the prayers of the nation will be with them and with their families. And again, a more courageous group of people you could not have hoped to know than the families of these crew members. And an extraordinary group of astronauts who gave their lives and did it in a way that they knew exactly the risk, but never do we ever want to see a circumstance where something like this could ever happen. And we diligently dedicate ourselves every single day to assuring these things don't occur. And when they do, we have to act responsibly, accountably, and that's exactly what we will do.
You're listening to Island Talk 540 WLIE's live coverage from NASA's Administrator Sean O'Keefe.
Heard here since 9 a.m. this morning, the Associate Administrator for Spaceflight, a former astronaut, retired captain of the United States Navy, former test flight pilot, Bill Reedy, who has commanded 2 separate missions previously and as an astronaut, and is now, again, our Associate Administrator for Spaceflight, has worked with me all morning, along with all of us here at Kennedy Space Center, to work through the details of the events as we know them and to present to you the facts that we understand them. Again, the technical details that are being worked very diligently now will be covered again at 3 p.m. this afternoon out of the Johnson Space Center. We'll then return it over to Captain Bill Reedy.
Island Talk 540 WLIE. And now Bill Reedy. Live coverage of NASA's briefing.
Live news conference from NASA.
It's a truly difficult day for all of us. Many of us were standing alongside the runway waiting to celebrate their triumphant return after a 16-day science mission. I think you could tell from the downlink that they loved what they were doing and they thought what they were doing was extremely important, pushing back those boundaries in science. At 9 o'clock, we heard that they had lost data from the spacecraft, and it appears that that was at about 200,000 feet, about Mach 18. The loss of data was somewhere over north central Texas, and at the planned landing time of 9:16, we initiated our contingency action plan, called the Rescue Coordination Center, and initiated a search and rescue effort. Sadly, I think from the video that's available, it does not appear that there were any survivors. We have currently impounded all the data, including all the pre-flight certification of flight readiness for STS-107. And at this point, I'd have to say it's too early to speculate about the exact cause. Obviously, we're looking at all the data that we have available. Those people that have videos, those people that have still pictures, we'll urge you to contact NASA so that we can coordinate those things that might be available. And to reiterate what the administrator said, those people that may find debris, do not touch it, do not move it. Contact your local authorities, have them impound it and secure the area so that our technical specialists will be able to piece together the puzzle so that we can resolve what happened. Our immediate focus is on the crew, families, and we spent some time with them. The president called. I'd have to say the families are bearing up with an incredible amount of dignity considering their loss. We all grieve for them. We all pray with them for the crew. But one thing came across loud and clear when visiting with them is they knew that the crew was absolutely dedicated to the mission that they were performing. And I think you could see that in the video downlink. They believed in what they were doing. And in the conversations with the crew and their families, they said that we must find what happened and fix it and move on. And we can't let their sacrifice be in vain. Today was a very stark reminder that this is a very risky endeavor, pushing back the frontiers in outer space. And after 113 flights, unfortunately, people have a tendency to look at it as something that is more or less routine. Well, I can assure you it is not. Each and every time I flew, each and every time my colleagues flew, we treated that with the respect that it deserved from a professional standpoint. And I have to say that as the one responsible for shuttle and station within the NASA, that I know that the people of NASA did everything possible preparing for this flight to make it as perfect as possible. My promise to the crew and to the crew families is that the investigation that we have just launched will find the cause, we'll fix it, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
We know you all have questions, and we will have a news briefing at 3 o'clock, and we'll give you that opportunity at that time. Thank you.
That was Bill Reedy, Captain Bill Reedy, the administrator of human spaceflight, calling it a truly difficult day for all of us. All the data has been impounded, he says. Immediate focus now is on the families of the crew, and they are bearing up with an incredible amount of dignity, he says, given the gravity of the situation. He says we must find out what happened, fix it, and move on. Moments before, the NASA administrator, Sean O'Keefe, said it's a tragic day for the NASA family, the families of the Columbia astronauts, and indeed the nation. He says President Bush was notified shortly after NASA lost contact with the shuttle, 9 a.m. Eastern time, and that the president has spoken to the family members. He says there is no indication the disaster was an act of terrorism. He says an independent board will be set up to investigate this disaster. This board will coordinate internal and external reviews. O'Keefe saying we will act responsibly. O'Keefe is urging anyone, by the way, who happens upon any debris to stay away from it. This debris is being found north of Dallas, across northern Texas, parts of Louisiana. And again, NASA urging people that come across any of this debris to please contact local law enforcement and stay away from it. It may be containing some sort of toxins and so forth. So that word from NASA, O'Keefe saying the astronauts dedicated their lives to pushing the scientific challenges here on Earth, and they did it with enthusiasm. He says the loss of this crew is something NASA will never get over. He calls it a horrific tragedy, and he added, you could not have done seen a more courageous group of people than the 7 astronauts aboard Space Shuttle Columbia.
You are listening to continuing coverage here at Island Talk 540 WLIE of the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster, which broke apart 200,000 plus feet above Texas earlier today, shortly after 9 o'clock, 16 minutes from its approach and landing at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The shuttle crew of 7 perishing as well. It's 1:36 in the afternoon here with our special coverage here at Island Talk 540 WLIE. David Weiss along with WLIE's Ed Till and Lynn Samuels, and John Gomez will be added to the mix in just a short time as well. On the line with us is Joan Kelly, who lives in Cutchogue. Her late husband, Thomas J. Kelly, was a part of the NASA space program, former astronaut back in the 1960s, I believe. And Joan, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us on a very difficult day. How are you?
I'm fine. My husband was not a former astronaut, and he worked for Northrop Grumman in Bethpage, where he was the managing engineer on the lunar module program.
We apologize for that error, but we knew he was a part of the space program.
Oh, sure.
As so many were.
And also he did work some on the shuttle wings.
He did. Tell us more about him and his involvement in the space program.
Well, I think that I'm just so upset today that I'm not sure I can tell you that much about my husband. My husband loved the space program, as I know all of these wonderful astronauts who are up there and were up there did and do. I also feel that all of them would not want their mission to be wasted. We must find out what happened and go on from there. But meanwhile, my heart just goes out to everyone who lost these people.
Joan,
all those families here and in Israel.
Joan, what was your first thought this morning when you heard this? Obviously, having been through the Challenger disaster in '86, you must have harkened back immediately. What were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts were horrible. I was horrified. I had just been hearing how wonderfully they were doing with the scientific experiments they were performing and how delighted they were to have seen some dust storms. And I thought, isn't that great? I bet they're going to bring back tons of stuff. And I was so happy for them. And then this.
Of course, your husband, part of Northrop Grumman, as you said, worked on the shuttle, too?
Well, no. My husband was retired as president of the Grumman Space Division, yes. And so he was involved in a lot of things with space, but particularly known for the lunar module.
The lunar module.
Now, but your husband also was the engineer that when there was an explosion in 1970 on a spacecraft, he was the first person they called when an oxygen tank exploded on the Apollo 13 spacecraft?
Well, yes, that was Apollo 13, and I don't know that he was the first person, but he was certainly one of the major persons that they called, of course. That was the night that we all went to bed after the news thinking everybody was safe, and then kabam. Yes.
But he had a charter, I don't know, the story I'm hearing, he had to charter an airplane.
What
and
happened
go back
was
to
that an airplane was chartered for him, and we woke up our then 11-year-old son and told him to mind the other children.
Joan, back to today's news. There's a remarkable amount of courage that goes into this program. Can you give some insight into the sacrifice and the courage that everybody on the NASA team dedicates, and how it feels on a day like today, after all this bravery and courage, to have this kind of a terrible event?
Well, I think that this is just a very desperately sad day for all of us. And, it doesn't matter what you've done or how you've done it. You did your really very best, and certainly the astronauts are the most smartest, most well-trained people in the world, I think. And for this to happen, something seriously had to go wrong, and I don't know what it was or what it is. All I know is that I am very sorry for them and for their families, because they were looking forward with such anticipation to seeing them, and they were looking forward to bringing us back more and new information from space. They're dedicated people, and my heart just goes out to the families here and in Israel.
Yes, you do sound as if you've lost family members of your own, as many of us feel on Long Island specifically, with our connection to the space program and through Grumman and through the work of your late husband, who meant so much to the space program, which is now in its 5th decade. And you saw it in its infancy, too, and through the years as well. And I know it will always be a very big part of your life, too.
Of course it is.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Again, a very, very difficult day.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Another memory of your husband and the work that all those at Grumman did for so many years lives on. It's a great legacy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joan Kelly again.
Bye-bye.
Her husband, Thomas J. Kelly, former president of the Grumman Space Division, who retired from that position and passed away some years ago. But for Joan Kelly, and for so many Long Islanders so tied to the space program, very, very difficult day. Once again, President George W. Bush will be making an announcement at some point this afternoon. Right now, he is meeting with many of those involved immediately in the investigation. We heard from Sean O'Keefe, NASA administrator, and also from Bill Reedy, expressing their deep sorrow and, of course, the collection of the debris over a wide area, 200 miles plus in Texas and some other states as well. Again, this all happened shortly after 9 o'clock our time for the Space Shuttle Columbia and the loss of the crew of 7.
David, we've just seen not only debris, but we saw the hole that it caused and the smoldering around it, which, of course, will be one of the health concerns, where the pollution and the toxicity could reach people. But we're also going to continue to learn from what we see now so much more than we had only several years ago, because we have all of this extra video today. I think this is a real gift to understanding and learning what happened.
Our live coverage throughout the day today will include sporadic updates from the Associated Press at the top of the hour, certainly 20 past the hour, and any other breaking news. Any news conferences will be carried live at WLIE as well. The next scheduled news conference from NASA itself, a technical news conference, if you will, that will include some Q&A, some questions and answers from reporters, is scheduled for 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Maybe we can play, we put together a great recap of some of the remarkable
Oh, yeah, the montage.
on Island Talk 540 WLIE, and it really is remarkable how many voices in what we've heard so far today. Go ahead.
As far as I know, it's just local right now, but there's many people coming from all over the place to check this debris out. A lot of it has fallen in the forest areas, a lot in the deeper piney wood areas. That's where they're finding most of it, about a few miles out of town between here and Lufkin.
Tell us just very quickly about Nacogdoches. Just how big a community is it, or is it very rural?
It's not many people at all. About 35,000 people settle here in Nacogdoches.
And this is a situation where you just got to the Comfort Inn. What do you see, though? Are emergency vehicles huddled around specific areas, or is it just a massive scene with lots of confusion?
It's more of a massive scene. The debris is really all over the place, so they're scattered out trying to find it.
And I thought it was a train wreck of some kind, actually.
Has any debris fallen anywhere near Mineola, Texas?
No, not near Mineola.
How far are you?
It's further south, where, from what I understand, everything's hitting. A little bit further east as well.
So you're south of Nacogdoches, which seems to be an area that has had a lot of debris.
Right. I'm north of Nacogdoches,
okay.
So, southeast of here is where, from what I understand, everything's hitting, it seems.
How are you following it from your vantage point? You have local news coverage or national?
Yeah, we got local news coverage. We'll be flipping back and forth between CNN and then our local stations here. And the local stations here have a little bit more access, of course, to the immediate events because, they can get their choppers down there. They're already showing debris. They're showing things in even Plano, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas, where debris has hit apartments out there and so forth.
There was some kind of huge explosion in the area. It did just linger for a while and then quit. But I really don't know because it startled me.
Yeah. So are you still startled? I mean, has the fear?
No, I'm very, very sad because my husband had worked at NASA in Palmdale when they were building the first shuttle.
Oh, wow.
And, yes, I'm very, very sad that this has happened.
At Palmdale, California is where he worked on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
When they took I think it was the Apollo and took it and launched it, and I saw it launch. So I'm a part of history.
Coverage of the Space Shuttle Columbia.
Island Talk 540 WLIE. David Weiss, Ed Till, Lynn Samuels, and
Sean Gomez on the way.
Right, lots of folks behind the scenes helping us in our continuing coverage of the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. 955-5400, a number also available for you to react to anything that has happened, maybe to bring back memories of where you were when in terms of the challenge of disaster, or any thoughts as to where the space program goes from here. The investigation, of course, just starting as the recovery efforts continue over a wide area in Texas and other states as well.
David, I have a report here from Time.com, TimeMagazine.com, where they ask an expert to start looking at what possible scenarios for this tragedy there are. And Jeffrey Kluger responds, there are 3 possible scenarios that explain this event. The first, which he says he believes is the likeliest explanation, would be an aerodynamic structural breakup of the shuttle caused by its rolling at the wrong angle. Remember, he says, after re-entry, the shuttle is descending without power, which means astronauts at the controls can't compensate for a loss of attitude by using their engines, which is commonly done when you fly an aircraft. So we're now starting to look carefully at the physical possible causes of this great tragedy
Which could be from the foam hitting the side of the thing, the space shuttle on takeoff.
Yeah, we can't underestimate that this anomaly on liftoff. And again, as you heard Felix Grucci say earlier, these tiles are essential because of the heat, but you also heard our guest, Professor Grossman, say that the tiles also pose a hazard. So there is a balance there in what you need to get the job done and the danger of using tiles and, again, the foam.
I think among those we spoke to, former Congressman Felix Grucci had a lot of very valuable information for us, and I believe we could bring that interview back to you at some point, possibly in our next hour. And the reason is he sat on the Science and Technology Committee and became rather well-versed in aeronautics and the space program. That was a part of his duties and responsibilities as a part of that particular committee. So we may bring that back to you a little while from now. It's about 2.5 minutes from now at 1:50. We'll go back to the Associated Press for an update on the latest in terms of what is continuing to unfold to our south. From NASA, of course, deep sorrow today, and the fervent message that the program will go on. It's what the astronauts themselves would have wanted. But this, the first tragedy since January 28, 1986, one that all of us certainly remember if we were alive and anywhere at the time, the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. But 7 lives lost today, including the first Israeli in space. 6 Americans and the Israeli in space lost in the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster.
Again, the Time.com report reminds me that in 1986, during the Challenger, we didn't have an internet that could instantly update, transmit photos, where we could get reports like this, where you can have all your major media now, not waiting for their actual release time.
Not waiting to actually find out a fact, but thanks to the internet and cable, we now have, can now reach experts who can speculate without having any knowledge of what went on.
They ask intelligent questions, though, based on their experience, and those intelligent questions sometimes yield answers.
Yeah, but I tell you, Lynn makes a great point, though. With the advent of the internet, that's where the rumor mill...
Yeah, don't go to the chat room. Right, it's not in the chat room. It's
not even the chat room, but you do get these people, and they are speculating, and they have no more knowledge at this point than we do about what happened. But
Joe Cox is here. Island Talk 540 WLIE's Joe Cox.
And we'll get to Joe in just a couple of moments with breaking news, and the very latest, as we know, it is 1:49 on Island Talk 540 WLIE. You mentioned from Time.com the fact that the shuttle does roll upon re-entry. Yes. If you've seen any of the simulated video, the shuttle actually, when it re-enters the atmosphere, is upside down and backwards and actually rolls over in terms of its re-entry. But many of these things already being investigated, as if you're watching video right now.
Well, right. You got to figure that this kind of understanding, with all of this extra video today, this is going to be very instructive. I mean, like Lynn says, you don't know what the answers are. You may not have all the facts yet, but you got to ask these logical questions for good investigative journalism, like our guest said earlier.
And from now to the rest of the weekend, you know that whether it be Fox News Channel, CNN, MSNBC, no matter where you look, you will see several different angles of the debris falling from the air, and some of which are remarkable. It's streaks of light falling in a perfectly blue sky, a cloudless sky over the state of Texas.
We always talked after a previous Challenger and after Twin Towers and the Pentagon about the repetition of horrible video. I don't see a lot of repetition today, but I see a lot of video, and I think that's a good thing, right? We're not seeing the same shot over and over. We are learning from what we see.
That's right. Ed Till and Lynn Samuels, yours truly, David Weiss, 150, Island Talk 540 WLIE, breaking news, continuing coverage of the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. Here's WLIE's Joe Cox.
Dave, we've got an update, as we've heard, live from NASA. They're saying it's a tragic day for the NASA family and the families of the Columbia astronauts, and indeed the nation. John O'Keefe, NASA administrator, saying he immediately notified President Bush after Columbia failed to land as scheduled at 9:16 a.m. Eastern Time today. He says President Bush has spoken with relatives of the astronauts. Today we are witnessing the second big space shuttle tragedy in the history of the space program. Space Shuttle Columbia and its crew of 7 are gone. In the aftermath, debris strewn across Texas.
Earlier we talked about this off the air. Is it merely perfunctory, or is there anything more behind his appeal? It'll be his first appearance.
It's absolutely perfunctory. It's PR. It's spin. I'm your leader, and this is a tragedy, and I feel your pain, and that, it has no meaning. It will be given meaning. Well, people will pretend it has meaning, but it has none.
It has become just the role of the President of the United States to hold our hand in times of tragedy and let us know, very simply, and I'm not being trite about this, but to let us know everything is all right. We will get through this. And also to address the memory of these astronauts, to offer some hope and healing to their families, and to let us know, I'm sure, that the space program will go on from here. That's something I'm sure will be a part of this address.
Well, and they'll be fighting over money, and they'll be fighting over who's going to investigate, and NASA's going to want to investigate, and Congress is going to want to investigate.
Well, Director of Homeland Security, now a cabinet-level position, Tom Ridge, has already come forward and made a couple of statements because his particular department will be involved in this investigation.
About 30 seconds now until the president is supposed to speak at 2 o'clock. We'll anxiously await.
From the White House, again,
some of us are anxious, some of us aren't.
You're right. Some people want to hear their leader. Some
of us are just cynical. It's just for show. It's not for anything real.
Well, may I say that the cynicism level very low right now, only because we're dealing with a national tragedy. Coming up to 2 o'clock on Island Talk 540 WLIE.
WLIE, Iceland.
This is a special live report from AP Network News. Space Shuttle Columbia lost. I'm Ross Simpson. We're waiting for the president to speak to the nation from the cabinet room at the White House. In the meantime, while we're waiting for him to come to the podium, we'll tell you, as the nation mourns the loss of Columbia and its 7-member crew, here is perhaps the last radio transmission from the shuttle to Mission Control this morning in Houston.
Columbia, Houston, we see your tire pressure messages, and we did not copy your last.
Roger. After that transmission, nothing but static. Perhaps you can hear a few clicks as NASA lost its data link with the shuttle. That happened at about 9 o'clock Eastern Time this morning, about 5 hours ago. A few minutes ago, NASA Administrator Sean O'Keefe spoke to reporters at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, giving them a brief sketch of what happened, but he answered no questions.
At this time, we have no indication that the mishap was caused by anything or anyone on the ground. We've assembled a mishap investigation team that immediately was assembled upon the point of past the stage in which the orbiter was to have landed here at Kennedy Space Center.
Correspondent Sagar Magani reports Columbia came apart today about 40 miles high over central Texas.
Shuttle Columbia was on its way toward the Kennedy Space Center runway when it broke apart in flames over Texas, leaving all 7 astronauts aboard dead. A senior U.S. official says the debris from the shuttle has been identified. It showered across Texas and apparently some other states. Some people reported seeing pieces fall into their front yards. Columbia had been expected to land in Florida at 9:16 a.m. Eastern, but 16 minutes before that, Mission Control in Houston lost all data and contact with the crew. That's about the same time some people in Texas reported hearing a big bang. I'm Sagar Megani.
A lot of debris fell on the eastern Texas town of Nacogdoches. Marilyn Larson is owner of the Hayden Edwards Inn. Larson says she got a good look at a piece of some of the debris.
It's just a chunk. It looks like almost a variegated cardboard.
A dentist says a foot-long metal bracket sliced through the roof of his office and landed on the floor. NASA is urging people in Texas and other states who find debris in their yards or on the street to call police.
Any debris that is located in the vicinity of the north central Texas area that may be related to the shuttle contingency should be reported to local law enforcement, who will then report to NASA. It should be avoided. Debris could be potentially hazardous due to toxic substances that are used as propellants on the space shuttle.
As we said a moment ago, we are waiting for the president to address the nation from the cabinet room at the White House. Let's go live now to the White House and talk to correspondent Mark Smith. Mark, the president came down from Camp David this morning. Where is the vice president?
Well, the vice president is actually in Texas. We're told he was on a hunting trip when he was informed about what happened this morning. Not clear exactly where he was. This is one of those cases where the White House is not telling us exactly because of security concerns. However, they are saying that he was not in the part of Texas where debris came down.
We understand the president has talked to some of the families of the astronauts at the Kennedy Space Center. He telephoned them.
Yes, and indeed, according to NASA Administrator Sean O'Keefe, Bush spoke by phone with a number of the families and offered them sincerest national regrets. I should tell you, Ross, the White House is now advising us the president's going to be speaking in about 20 seconds here. The president did motorcade down here from Camp David as soon as he learned the news. He's going to be speaking from the cabinet room of the White House. I should also mention before he does step to the podium there that soon before his motorcade arrived at the White House, the flag here was lowered to half-staff. So once again, the president due to be speaking from the cabinet room, and here he is.
My fellow Americans, this day has brought terrible news and great sadness to our country. At 9 o'clock this morning, Mission Control in Houston lost contact with our space shuttle Columbia. A short time later, debris was seen falling from the skies above Texas. The Columbia is lost. There are no survivors. On board was a crew of 7. Colonel Rick Husband, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Anderson, Commander Laurel Clark, Captain David Brown, Commander William McCool, Dr. Kultna Shabla, and Ilan Ramon, a colonel in the Israeli Air Force. These men and women assumed great risk in the service to all humanity. In an age when space flight has come to seem almost routine, it is easy to overlook the dangers of travel by rocket and the difficulties of navigating the fierce outer atmosphere of the Earth. These astronauts knew the dangers, and they faced them willingly, knowing they had a high and noble purpose in life. Because of their courage and daring and idealism, we will miss them all the more. All Americans today are thinking as well of the families of these men and women who have been given this sudden shock and grief. You're not alone. Our entire nation grieves with you. And those you love will always have the respect and gratitude of this country. The cause in which they died will continue. Mankind is led into the darkness beyond our world by the inspiration of discovery and the longing to understand. Our journey into space will go on. In the skies today, we saw destruction and tragedy, yet farther than we can see. there's comfort and hope. In the words of the prophet Isaiah, lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry hosts one by one and calls them each by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. The same creator who names the stars also knows the names of the 7 souls we mourn today. The crew of the shuttle Columbia did not return safely to Earth, yet we can pray that all are safely home. May God bless the grieving families. And may God continue to bless America.
The President, his voice cracking there on the end, addressing the nation, a very tragic day, saying this day has brought terrible new sadness to our country. He says the entire nation grieves the deaths of the 7 Columbia astronauts. He says these 7 astronauts assumed great risk. Again, adding this day bringing terrible new sadness to our country, and the entire nation grieves for those 7 astronauts who were aboard Space Shuttle Columbia. A very brief announcement from the President, and coming several hours after we learned that the shuttle Columbia has been destroyed some 200,000 feet above Texas. Communication lost at 9 o'clock this morning with mission control. The space shuttle due to touch down at 9:16 Eastern Time, but disappeared from radar shortly after 9 o'clock this morning.
Island Talk, 540 WLIE's Mike Gallagher is going to join us from Rice, Texas, where he has, in fact, seen debris and is going to file a first-hand report with us. But as you know, this ongoing coverage since this story broke today with David Weiss, Lynn Samuels, John Gomez to come on shortly. I'm Ed Till. David?
And Mike Gallagher on the phone with us right now. WLIE's own Mike Gallagher, of course, syndicated talk show host who we've known and loved for so long. Mike, where are you right now?
Well, David, I just left Rice, Texas, where I was in front of Rice High School, where clearly a piece of debris had fallen. It was a surreal sight. The Texas State Patrol had roped it off with that yellow police tape, but we were able to stand just about 4 or 5 feet from the debris. In fact, just snapped a picture of it, and just very creepy. It's about an 8-inch by 10-inch smoldering piece of tile, about 3 to 4 inches thick, but you can see where the tile had been burned and where the pieces had sort of peeled back from what must have been the horrific explosion, and you can see the white ceramic on the corners under the tile. So the local authorities roped it off. There's an onlooking crowd of about 80 to 100 people, and it's just very creepy here as I make my way south on Interstate 45. I'm headed toward Nacogdoches right now, which appears to be sort of the center of where this debris field has fallen.
Mike, this is Ed Till. Is there an odor, a smell? We've been hearing all day about the danger to breathing in the toxic fumes, and you said this is in fact smoldering, what you saw.
Ed, the local radar here in northeast Texas shows what appears to be a gigantic thunderstorm. Lots of red, and it looks like what is just a major thunderstorm. And of course, it's a sunny, bright day here in northeast Texas. So it's very deceiving. There is no odor that I can see. This piece of debris, as I said, is only by about 8 by 10 inches. But you can still see it smolder a little bit. There are numerous reports of National Guard troops going out throughout this region right now, trying to implore people not to touch it, because of course it can be very dangerous with the chemical compounds that would come from the Space Shuttle Columbia as it re-entered the atmosphere. Well, I just received a report, unconfirmed, from a trooper here that some 36 people in the city of Nacogdoches, Texas, have sought medical treatment for falling debris. Again, that's unconfirmed, but this is a report that this Texas State Trooper received over his radio.
Yeah, that's a very late information, too, because we had spoken to the Director of Security at the Medical Center in Nacogdoches within the past hour or so, a man by the name of Jerry Elliott, who said at that point they had not received any reports of anyone being hit with debris. Of course, there could be reports as well of many folks touching that debris as well, getting a little too close. And talking to folks in Nacogdoches and other surrounding communities, there was overwhelming fear in the first hour, couple of hours following this tremendous tragedy. People being told to stay in their homes, not go anywhere near any debris. And that fear, has it been replaced, have you seen, by curiosity?
Well, that's exactly what it is right now. It is curiosity. In fact, one woman here in Rice, Texas, could barely contain herself. She said, well, this is kind of exciting because nothing really happens to this sleepy little town. And then she caught herself and she said, of course, it's an awful catastrophe that 7 families lost loved ones like this. But David, you should know that here in North Texas, watching a space shuttle re-enter the atmosphere is a fairly routine occurrence.
Right.
We sort of have a luxury here in this part of the country being able to see it. because it does happen right over Dallas-Fort Worth and almost precisely in the same spot every time. That's the flight pattern as the space shuttle re-enters the atmosphere and lands in Florida. So, there were lots of eyes here in North Texas and Louisiana that were watching this and then saw that familiar plume of smoke break up into several plumes of smoke when people realized that something went horribly awry. There, of course, have also, very morbidly, there's a report of a hand and an arm, body parts that were discovered along with debris at the Texas-Louisiana border, and that was confirmed earlier today.
Again, we're speaking with Mike Gallagher, heard every weekend right here at Island Talk 540 WLIE. Mike Gallagher live with us from Texas. He is heading to Nacogdoches, which has become something of the epicenter of the debris field following the tragedy, the disintegration of the Space Shuttle Columbia, which took place just after 9 our time here in the Eastern Time Zone this morning and over the state of Texas. It is 2:13. WLIE's David Weiss along with Ed Till.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned that debris that was 8 by 10 inches, maybe 3 to 4 inches thick and smoldering. Did it embed into the surface or was it lying on the surface? What else could you see as an eyewitness to this debris?
Ed, it was really peculiar. It wasn't embedded. It was just resting right there, sort of in a dirt area in front of Rice High School. I took some pictures and had some pictures taken, and WLIE listeners will be able to view that on your website. Just go through the WLIE website and then link to my website, which is mikeonline.com. Eric Hansen, my director of operations, is trying to download this and get it up right away so you can see it. It's very eerie, Ed. It's again, I was surprised at its thickness and that it was not, in fact, embedded into the ground. It looks like it just kind of gently, floated to Earth. But
isn't that extraordinary? Because we've seen both on television. We've seen embedded stuff where you only see the smoldering hole.
Yeah, and then it looks like a crater. Right?
Correct. And then we've seen residential landscape right behind pieces that are just as you described them, Mike.
It just looks like it landed on almost like a feather. I mean, you cannot see it indented into the ground. I mean, again, there's a marking, there's a stake where they put it up, a stake next to this piece of debris and then the yellow tape. But no, it's not embedded at all. And there are reports that this debris is going to be falling possibly for the next 2 to 4 hours throughout northeast Texas and into Louisiana. So this may not be over yet.
Is the weather playing any part in how this debris is arrayed along the landscape?
Actually, one expert that I was listening to earlier on the way to Nacogdoches said that the weather is a factor in that it will be a very pure, forensic scene because there are no storms in the area, there are no heavy winds. It's pretty much a brisk. It's right now 70 degrees here in Rice, Texas, and it's sunny and calm. So that debris is going to just kind of make a true trajectory down to the ground. But they said that because it was 40 miles, Columbia was 40 miles above Dallas-Fort Worth when they first lost contact, much like a storm pattern, as this debris falls, it's going to drift typically eastward, and north. So that's why they say this field of debris will eventually start falling over parts of Louisiana.
Nationally syndicated talk show host Mike Gallagher here, heard every weekend on WLIE, joining us live from Texas on his